Using a paint wash to lighten or slightly alter the color of wood is not a new thing, and it's highly trending right now. Many people seem to want lighter wood, and I personally love doing it, but my question for today is, can you do it to something like this? These are two night tables that I've had in storage for a while, and from a distance they look like they may be made of oak or some other type of hardwood. There's texture, you can actually see and feel the wood grain, or at least what they're trying to pass off as wood grain. There's no wood on these pieces, except for a little bit of the framing. All of these carved details and trim pieces are plastic. And I want to know if you can paint wash these the same as real wood. Stay tuned. My name is Angie and I refinish furniture. Sometimes I paint and sometimes I don't, but I always do what I can to save old pieces from the trash. Welcome to my workroom. Just before we get into this, I want to do a quick update on my little home studio where I create these videos for you. When I first started my channel, I was voicing my videos on the floor in my closet. Then I moved to a temporary space in the basement with the bunnies, and about 5 months ago I moved to a permanent spot in an unused bedroom. The desk I've been using has these big blocky sides which made it hard to access things on the other side, and I was constantly banging my knees on it, not to mention the huge mess of wires in behind it. I have always wanted a sit-stand desk. I just feel like for long hours of editing it was going to be better for me, so when I had the chance to work with FlexiSpot on a video I was so excited. I opted for the E7 desk in white. Everything arrived very well packaged, and they also sent me this maple look desktop. Now this has a very hard wearing finish on it, I can tell just by feeling it. It has rounded corners which is nice, and it's pre-drilled. I'm opting to set this aside because I actually want to get another standing desk for Andrea, so I'll be using that top on that desk. The E7 was really easy to put together. I did it myself in I'd say about 45 minutes. And our friend Sarah was actually at the house working when I was doing this, so I had her help me flip everything over and right side up when it was time. The frame is adjustable, so you can shorten it or lengthen it depending on the size of your desktop. And I love this cable management tray. Like I said, dangling wires everywhere were a pain in my butt with the last setup, so that was great. I also opted to add a drawer just to keep my SD cards and cables and a couple of other small things. Once I had it all together and we had it upright, it was time to make sure everything worked. The first thing I needed to do, because these floors are a bit wonky, is level it up, put everything back together, tuck these cables out of the way, which I have to say was probably one of my favorite things about this desk. And of course, give it a test run. The first thing I did was actually set my two heights. I have a sitting height and a standing height. As you can see, I am not a small person, and this desk lifted me and lowered me with ease. And the E7's weight capacity is 355 pounds, making for an extremely versatile workstation. I am incredibly impressed with how stable this is at seated height and at standing height, and I'm looking forward to getting Andrea one for her rock shop. FlexiSpot has multiple versions of standing desks and chairs at multiple price points, so you can find exactly what you need. Right now, FlexiSpot is having an anniversary sale up to 50% off. You can use my code for an extra 10% off orders over $500. And if you buy the E7 series now, like I have, you can get 50% off their ergonomic chair. I really love my new desk. Alright, so let's have a better look at this. Like I said, this may look like wood, it is not. Even here on the sides, you can see the slightly darker strip, which normally looks a little bit like veneer. It's not, it's a plastic faux wood coating. Now, I sometimes get a little bit of flack for working on pieces like this because they're not super high-end. These are something you would have gotten at a big box store, probably in the late 70s or 80s, and even today, to be honest. But that doesn't mean that they should just be discarded. Looking at these in the condition that they are currently in, they're pretty dirty, so they need a really good cleaning, and it does smell a little bit musty, and this is sometimes an issue with this particle board furniture. It really tends to hold on to moisture, so as I'm going through this, I'm also going to be sealing the inside to try to stop any residual odors coming through and also prevent things from soaking into that really porous particle board. I'm not entirely sure if I want to keep these original handles. These night tables, they're totally not my style. They're quite ornate looking. But yeah, you can see here how they've etched that fake wood grain into the plastic. It can be quite convincing, and I already know that when I adapt this video to Facebook for my short versions, there are going to be people that want to persecute me for painting this beautiful wood. They're in for a surprise. As you can see here, these are pretty filthy, so I'm using TSP and a scrub brush to get all of that dirt off. Now with TSP and other degreasers, you often want to rinse the TSP off. So once I have wiped off the initial soap, I go back in with a wet rag, wipe it again, and then dry it. Now I'm spraying an odor blocking primer on the inside of these. I've had really good luck with these products, so this is the perfect example of when I would want to use them. Straight up shellac also works, whether it's in a spray can like this or the type that you can brush or roll on. Because this is not real wood and there's particle board underneath, I have to be really careful with scuff sanding. So I'm just doing this very lightly. I don't want to go through that old finish because the first thing I'm going to be attempting here is a whitewash like I would on normal wood. Fusion Mineral Paint came out with a bunch of beautiful new colors that I've been dying to try, and I decided to try Parchment on these. So normally when you're doing a paint wash, you mix up your paint with water, you brush it on, and then immediately wipe it off, and you get a nice soft finish. Because this is plastic, it's not absorbent, and I don't know how this is going to work. This is probably going to be a disaster. But I've really wanted to try it because it would be amazing if this did work, because it would be a great thing to do for these old pieces that generally kind of get looked over. I'm doing a 2-to-1 ratio of water to paint, and once it's all thoroughly mixed, I'm going to brush it on. It's going to be super drippy because it is more water than paint. That's okay. I'm going to do my best to brush this on quickly without flinging it everywhere, which is a process in itself. And you can see as I'm applying it, it is settling nicely into that faux wood grain, which is very much like oak. The problem started when it was time to wipe these back a bit. Now, if these drawers were completely flat or had less decoration on them, this might be a little bit easier and probably would have been more successful, but because there's so much going on here, it's just extremely difficult to do this when there's no absorption of the paint. So safe to say, this was a fail. I'm going to have to move on to something else. So one of the other new colors of fusions I wanted to try is this one, Wellington. Now, a while back, I did a couple of pieces with a one-coat paint technique with wood grain similar to this, except it was actual wood grain and wood veneer. But basically, certain fusion colors look really cool with just a single coat applied because it allows parts of the wood grain to show through underneath. It's just kind of a very unique and different looking thing that I stumbled across. So I thought, okay, well, if the paint mixture with water didn't work out, what if I just used paint and tried to do that same one-coat paint technique? Basically, you want to apply a very thin coat. Sometimes you can lightly wipe it back or you can just leave it as is. I very lightly wiped parts of this. And this is what it would look like. Now, some people are going to hate that look. Some people think it's really cool, but that is another option that you could do on these plastic pieces for something a little bit out of the ordinary. You'll notice I'm not using a primer here. This is another reason why I'm doing this extremely light first coat. Fusion has excellent adhesion. There's only been a few instances where I needed a primer, and that was to prevent tannin bleed through on certain woods or extremely slick surfaces. Once I realized the paint wash thing wasn't going to work out, I decided I was going to paint these fully, but I just wanted to show you that one coat paint technique because that is an option. Even though I said in the beginning I wasn't sure if I was going to use this hardware, I'm still going to clean it up just in case. So this is after 2 very thin coats of Wellington. I'm scratching pretty hard here and there's no paint lifting. I am good to go with my third and likely final coat. Now, depending on the lighting you're in, this color could look gray, it could look green, but it's actually more green than gray. It also has very subtle bronze undertones, so it's kind of a chameleon in a way. It could look and feel differently depending on the room that it's going in. And you can also influence the way that color is going to lean depending on the color of hardware that goes on this. I did consider changing out the hardware for one of these two more modern styles, but ultimately I'm trying to do this as efficiently and economically as possible. This is what the hardware looks like after one coat of this bronze paint. I will end up doing 2 coats on all of the pieces and then using some antiquing glaze over top just to tone it down a little bit. It was a little intense. So the one on the left is the one with the antiquing glaze and the one on the right is just the metallic. I like both, but I just wanted to tone it down a little bit. Some of the drawers were stained inside, and rather than spend a bunch of money replacing the bottoms, I'm opting to just add some new contact paper in to freshen it up. If these were more valuable pieces or something that was just worth more of an investment, I would have considered replacing the bottoms. But unless you're doing something like this for yourself, these pieces are generally ones that you don't want to put a whole lot of money into because you're not going to get a whole lot back in return. Solid wood pieces are different, or even pieces with actual veneer, but these plastic pieces, for me, they're more utilitarian. And if you're doing this for a business, you want to do a good job, of course, but you don't want to go overboard. And that was, again, one of the reasons I opted to keep the original hardware. So this is the part of the project that will vary greatly depending on where you are, what your budget is, and what your, I guess, goal is for the piece. You saw me pour some liquid into a cup. That was hemp oil, and hemp oil just gives the paint a nice rich look. So you can see the one on the left is just the paint, and the one on the right has the hemp oil. It's just a little bit darker, a little bit richer and deeper in color. Now you could use waxes, you could use polys, you could use many different types of top coats. Fusion actually has its own built-in top coat. For these, I'm just opting to use the hemp oil. So to transform these, I used Wellington by Fusion Mineral Paint. I used Modern Masters metallic paint in antique bronze with a little bit of the Fusion antiquing glaze. And as kind of an extra top coat and to deepen the color, I used a little bit of Homestead House hemp oil. And of course, we used the original hardware. I know this video is a little bit of a departure from a lot of the really nice vintage pieces I work on, but I wanted to do this because it is important to reuse these pieces even if they're not the most valuable or fancy. Times are tight right now for a lot of people, and in some cases this is all people are going to be able to afford, so I wanted to show them a pretty easy way to update them. If you've been on Facebook Marketplace recently, you'll know that prices have definitely gone up across the board and cheap furniture is hard to come by. And I'm getting really tired of the old school mentality of solid wood or bust. Now, if you look at a set like this, these are clearly not wood. These are all laminate. But for the price, and you could probably get it a little bit cheaper if you haggled, especially on ads like this where people are moving or say that they need it gone by a specific date. With a little bit of scrubbing and some updating, you could have a nice bedroom suite. Is it going to last you 30 years? That's debatable. I guess if you took good care of it, it could. But the point is, we have to stop throwing everything away and just going and buying new stuff. There's nothing wrong with these pieces. They're super sturdy. They just need a little bit of care and updating. So that was the whole point of this video. Hopefully this will be a good starting point for someone. As always, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the reveal, and I will see you next time.